Assalamu alaikum. We have these Friends of Bangladeshi programs. There are different episodes whereby we bring special people who are friends of Bangladeshi around the world, especially in Britain. They have devoted their lives for the betterment of Bangladesh and its people. And today we have a very special guest, and it's none other than Valerie Taylor. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Okay?
Very well,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Shall we go and see a video clip now? And then we'll have a long chat with Valerie Taylor.
Valerie Taylor was born on 8th of February 1994 in the Fruit Kingdom, Kent, Great Britain. She came to East Pakistan as a volunteer of VSO, Voluntary Service Overseas, an international development charity, in 1969. She joined Chandraghona Christian Missionary Hospital in Chittagong as a physiotherapist. She was 25 years old. She fell in love with the soil and the people of the country. She was repatriated from Bangladesh during the Liberation War. However, she returned in September 1971 in the middle of the heavy war across Bangladesh. She used her skills to give service to the war-wounded veteran freedom fighters. Later, in 1975, she started working on building a new pyramid of dream. She wanted to set off a physiotherapy institution in Bangladesh for the first time. The dream finally came true in 1979. From inside two cement storehouses at Shahid Sarwardi Hospital, CRP started its visionary voyage afterwards, going through tough times. Valerie was able to secure a firm place as ambassador of service in the hearts of millions in Bangladesh. Valerie Taylor has been decorated with many awards, including OBF, Order of the British Empire for her outstanding efforts providing holistic treatment for the paralyzed in 1995. The government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh honored her with citizenship of Bangladesh in 1998.
That was a short video clip about Valerie Taylor. Valerie Taylor is an OBE. She is known as Mother Teresa of Bangladesh, and we are proud of you.
Thank you.
She established the Center for the Rehabilitation of the Paralyzed at Sabah. Is it Sabah, Dhaka?
That's right, yes.
When did you start the project?
Well, I would say that ideas came about the project to me many years before we actually started. But in 1975, I was working out of the Shurawadi Hospital and felt that we could really serve people with spinal injuries better if we had a small, separate, independent centre. So we actually began our work 10 years after I first went to Bangladesh in 1979, in very humble beginnings, in two old cement go-downs in the front of the Shurawadi.
So what did you do at Sarwardi Hospital in Dhaka?
That was a project for people with spinal injuries, but to give them vocational training and help them find jobs. But what we discovered was, unless they had very good nursing care, many were literally not surviving because of awful pressure sores, things that can be avoided if somebody is turned regularly to relieve the pressure.
So you thought about a project whereby you will address the issues of the disabled in an independent place.
That's right.
Which is in Sabah.
That's
So
our main centre.
How did it start?
Well, we began in these cement storerooms with 4 patients. Quickly we built up to, I think it was 35, when the main hospital said, we need those buildings, you need to find somewhere else. So we moved to a house in Shankor in Dhanmondi, a private house. We were there for 4.5 years. The landlord then said, sorry, you can't stay any longer. We want to pull the house down and build a medical centre. And then we found a much bigger property at Farmgate, the home of M.R. Khan. and we were there for another 4.5 years, building up, I think, about 55 paralysed patients there. It was a much bigger property. So there were 11 years when we were rather like gypsies moving from place to place.
Okay, then you went to Sabah.
Then we went
and
to
then
Sabah.
then how did you get the land?
Well, it's rather an amazing story. We purchased the land.
Okay.
9 years later.
With donations?
Yes,
people?
with donations. But 9 years later, the lady who we'd purchased the land from said, I want to return all that we had paid her. So she returned every penny of the money we had paid her. And with that money, we were able to build 3 new buildings.
3 new buildings.
In memory of members of her
Excellent, that's
family.
amazing.
So that was a lovely...
That is amazing. So the total area of the land is, how big is it?
It's about 11, 12 acres in Sabah, yes. We started with 5 acres, and then we were able to add land to make it that size.
Is it a fully fledged hospital now?
Well, we tend not to use the word hospital because patients will
Rehabilitation
be
centre.
Rehab is the name we choose, but it is still the only one in Bangladesh,
yes.
where we're looking at a sort of holistic therapy, the physical, the emotional, the social, and the economic rehabilitation for somebody who's either broken their neck or broken their back. So very severe injuries, but they can live a very full lifespan if we can teach them how to manage in a wheelchair.
How many physiotherapists do you have?
We have quite a large number working for us, but we have been training physiotherapists. We started by training them just at certificate level. Then there was a demand from them, we want to do a diploma in physiotherapy, and later on the degree course recognised by Dhaka University. So we have trained many physiotherapists, and quite a large number actually working with us.
Of course, the disabled people are the most neglected and disadvantaged people in Bangladesh?
They tend to be, and why I would say one assumes that that really is the case, because still we are the only place in Bangladesh training occupational therapists and speech and language therapists, and most recently prosthetics and orthotics, being able to make artificial limbs. So I think that indicates...
You do that as well,
yes,
artificial limbs?
After the Rana Plaza disaster...
I was going to come to that in a minute.
Yes, there was a pressure, which was good. The German embassy, the International Committee for the Red Cross, the BGMEA, all were saying that we need these people in Bangladesh. And previous to that, we were sending our trainees to South India, to Vietnam.
But now you train them there.
Now we train
so
them.
So after the Sabah Rana Plaza tragedy,
yes.
How many patients did you have there?
We had... I think something like 330 actually admitted. And then several as outpatients. So the people that, and that's when we realised again the importance of the artificial limbs.
Do you still have some patients from that tragedy?
I think now most of them have been rehabilitated. What we did were, we were sort of the middle man, as it were. Donors would give us money to then
look after them.
Yes. So the patient may say, I want a cow, and so our staff would go help them buy the cow, ensure they had a cow shed, ensure they had some food stuff for the animal.
So, you know, to run such a big project, you need big funding as well. It is costly.
It is very costly.
I think. So how do you manage that? Do you get government funding and private donors?
We do have government funding to begin with. Not
which government?
The Ministry of Health in Bangladesh. Yes.
Okay.
Long back, we had wonderful support from the British government, the overseas aid section. Wonderful support to help us with running costs and building costs in those early days.
Is it sufficient amount you get from the government?
it's only about 6 or 7% of our running costs, but we have several different groups also around the world. We have a support group here in the UK,
yes.
and particularly people who have Bangladeshi restaurants have come. I was in Kent last week, and there's a restaurant there called the Taj of Kent, and they opened their doors, had a meal where people who came
and
donated. Yes.
Yeah, I think as people get to know about the project, the good things you are doing, the good things Mother Teresa of Bangladesh, OBE, is doing, I think people will be more interested. And here in UK we have some 600,000 Bangladeshis living. So as people get aware of your fantastic work, I think more and more people will be encouraged.
That's wonderful to hear you say
Thank
that.
So you get patients referred from all over from Bangladesh?
Yes, they do come from all over.
So how do they get
Bangladesh.
admission there?
Well, sometimes they will phone ahead, sometimes a relative will come and ask what's involved, and sometimes they'll just land at our front
Do they have to
door.
pay a fee?
Well, what we do is a series of means testing, so people who are very poor, with our social workers assessing their financial situation, either we will give them completely free or the most subsidised rate that we possibly can give.
And for the well-off?
Yes, and
do
then
you
for
have
those we have a sort of 6 different categories of people, and then often they will be very happy to contribute to their costs.
How many patients would you treat at a time?
Yeah, well, we have 100 beds for spinal injuries. Often bursting at the doors, we have 130 we can manage to squeeze in. We also have a paediatric section for able mothers with their cerebral palsy children. So that's 40 beds for these young mothers learning how to look after their disabled child.
Okay, so if you can tell us that when you started the project, when you thought about the project, it must have been a struggle.
Yes.
Tell us about that, what you went through.
Well, yes, initially it was hard to find donors who would be able to support us because we had no experience and we were proving to ourselves and to our donors.
How did people take you when you spread the idea about starting a project?
Many people were not too happy, and I think they thought, what's this foreign woman doing here?
But that foreign woman eventually was given the citizenship of Bangladesh.
Yeah, you're right,
yes?
And that was a wonderful thing to happen.
So you are a Bangladeshi?
Certainly it's my second home.
You are a British Bangladeshi. So how many doctors would you have?
We have, I think, about 12 in our main centre in Sava. Altogether, in all the centres that we have across the country, we're very close to 1,000 staff members.
1,000? And
What we have, you see, is 3 quite big centres in Dhaka. So one is the 13-storey building on the outskirts of Mirpur. One is the Sava, where I've mentioned we have, especially for spinal injuries, in a place called Gonokbari, so that's adjacent to the EPZ in Dhaka. We have a 5-acre site there where it's vocational training.
So you are expanding.
Yes.
People are getting aware of
That's
the
right.
severity of the
yes, and the size
disabled.
of the problem. That's right. And then we have 12 small centres across the country, all at different
I'll come to that in a second. I'll come to that. You
Please.
have, different centres
Sure,
here and there
sure.
in Bangladesh. So now you are in a comfortable situation, running-wise, or do you have
Yes,
any
but
difficulties financially,
but
for instance.
always looking for more funding. For example, we have been given pieces of land in various places across the country, which we're very happy to receive, but we can't use it till we've raised the sum of money that's needed for the purpose-built buildings for a divisional centre.
We'll continue our discussion. We'll have to go for a short break.
Very good.
Stay with us. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back. We are having a discussion with Valerie Taylor, OBE, known as the Mother Teresa of Bangladesh. So Valerie, when did the Bangladesh government give you the citizenship of Bangladesh?
Yes, I think it was 1998.
1998.
Yes, Sheikh Hasina came to visit and in fact opened the completed project in Sawa, and that was the time.
Excellent. So you hold two passports.
That's right, I do.
British and Bangladeshi.
Yes, yes.
We were talking about the branches.
Yes.
How many branches do you have?
Well, we have 3 bigger ones in Dhaka and 12 at all different stages of development. If I could just share, in Rajshahi, the most developed one, because we had a gift of land from one of our therapists who went, Bangladeshi, but went to live with her family in the United States. And on that piece of land, with the help of the Japanese embassy, we have built a 4-story building for treatment and for accommodation.
For how many patients?
Well, we've just added accommodation for patients, and I'm honestly not remembering exactly how many we can hold. But there is always a demand for perhaps somebody who's had a stroke, and it's not easy to come from home over a period of weeks. So if they can stay in the same locality, it's a great help to them. Yes.
So apart from that, you are opening a branch in Sylhat?
Yes, we are. We have been given a piece of land quite recently. We're now renting quite a large building in Sylhet town so that the services can be running. But now what we're really looking for is the funding for a purpose-built building to have on that land to establish a divisional centre for Sylhet.
So you have the land,
we have the land
given to you,
That's
donated
right,
to you.
Donated.
You are renting at the moment.
That's right.
And then you wish to start a building there.
That's right.
And eventually treat patients within the division of Sylhet.
Yes, because of course, if you're renting a building, the end of the year you have nothing to show for it. It really helps us to feel it's a permanent place for our work to continue for
Do
the
you
long-term
have
future.
something in Maulvi Bazaar?
We have in Maulvi Bazaar, we have been in, to begin with, rent-free accommodation for a number of years. And now we're looking again for a permanent place, something that is bigger and a little more suitable for a rehabilitation centre. So in Rajshahi, Chittagong, Borishal. Most recently this year, we've started in Mymensingh. We were asked specially to do something in Pabna, which we have done. And that, I think, is because we realise there's such a need for people with mental health disabilities, and that they can benefit so much from occupational therapy. So in Pabna and in Dhaka, we're hoping to develop the work for people with mental health problems.
Okay. আপনি কি বাংলা বুঝেন?
কিছুটা বুঝতে পারি, কিন্তু এতদিন পর আমার বাংলা এত খারাপ, আমার এত দুঃখ লাগছে।
No problem. Because I think more and more people have started speaking English in Bangladesh.
That I think is true.
When were you awarded the OBE by the Queen.
Yeah, and I think that was the same year. So I
Same
think that
year.
was 1998.
98
yes,
has been the lucky year.
I think so.
Excellent, excellent. And you have won many, many awards. Yes?
Well, I would like to correct you and say it's not me, it's
I
CRP.
mean your project. But you are an inspiration.
I
Definitely.
don't know.
Definitely. How often do you come to the UK?
Now I am coming every year and roughly for 6 months at a time, because I know I can do a certain amount of fundraising while I'm here. But I also felt that it was perhaps good for the project, for the organisation, to start to withdraw physically a little bit. So every day I'll receive emails from the centre and hear about what's going on. But just feeling that it's good for the organisation to stand on its own feet.
Do you have many people supporting your project in UK?
We do have quite a large number of supporters, that's right. And so every alternate year I do a very long tour all around
The UK?
England, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Yes.
Wales.
Yes, I haven't done so much in Wales, just
But I'm
depends
sure you will soon.
where I'm invited to speak, that's right.
So is it generally the British public or British Bangladeshis?
Very much British Bangladeshis who've been so supportive, and as I mentioned, so often through preparing a Bangladeshi meal in a restaurant and
then
supporting in that way. And just this year, a few weeks ago, I was invited to Washington and to New York by Bangladeshi organizations in both places. Each put on a fundraising dinner in aid of the centre, which was wonderful.
So it is expanding in USA?
It is. We have in Canada, we have in Sweden, and in the United States.
And
we have
Australia?
already, not yet. I was there earlier in the year, and we had a meeting of supporters, but they haven't formed into a support group as such. So we hope that will happen before too long. Yes.
So, as you said that the British government used to give funding from, foreign aid and so on.
Yes.
Has it stopped totally?
Yes, it has. I think over the years, perhaps they'd feel we'd received a great deal of support, and I think they would always encourage any organisation to see how much fundraising they can do themselves to stand on their own feet. So it's some little while since we've had direct help from the British High Commission. Yes.
Tell us about your opinion about the Bangladeshi people in Bangladesh.
I think they're very generous, because I've mentioned that already. I've mentioned a few pieces of land have been donated for the expansion of our work. But another thing that happened very early on, when we were looking to find a bigger property in Sava, one of our neighbours came to bargain the price of his piece of land to sell it to us. This was very early on. I didn't happen to be there at the time of his visit. He phoned me a few days later and he said, I came to sell you my land, but when I saw what was happening, and we were in temporary buildings then, he said, I can't sell it to you, I must donate it. And that was really wonderful. So we have found people very generous indeed, yes. And I think gradually the idea of the corporate social responsibility that many of the
You mentioned about after the Rana Plaza, the BGME, the garments
so they've
organization
supported us, enabling us to build classrooms and a bigger working area for the people with this qualification of prosthetics and orthotics, learning to make artificial limbs and aids and appliances for disabled people. So that's a 3-year training, and they enabled us to have the infrastructure that we needed.
Okay. And so tell us about the culture, Bangladeshi culture. What is your opinion about the culture?
I think there is so much about the culture that is very, very special. I think the fact of the extended families is something that I think is something very beautiful in the society, where families work together and support each other and so often live together. I know perhaps the culture in England is so very different because it isn't ever really a question that the oldest son will be working to support the youngest brother to go to school, those sorts of things.
So food-wise, when you were there,
yes.
what do you have? Do you have curry?
Yeah,
Or do you have...
I do, but I suppose I'm now tending to eat more chapatis and vegetables, something. Perhaps.
Are you a vegetarian?
No, I'll eat anything, but I love vegetables in Bangladesh, and chapati and the various rotis I like very much.
So I want to ask you this. It's some decades you have been in Bangladesh.
I have, yes.
What changes have you noticed?
Certainly, I'm often surprised how much road building has happened, and I've often not been aware of it till perhaps I'm going to visit our centre in Borishal and think, oh my goodness, this is a beautiful new road. So there's certainly those aspects that you realise all the time. Things are progressing, and perhaps that what I wasn't aware of before.
And the average income has increased.
Oh, certainly.
Well.
I think we're very conscious, and I guess it's perhaps a lot to do, would you agree, with the number of young women working
in the garments
factories.
next door to you.
Yes,
In
very
Sabah.
much so, very much so. And we've been working on, it's called an industrial sewing machine training, which is actually supported by Marks and Spencer over here and Tesco, training women with disabilities for the garments industry. We've been doing that since about 2005, 2006.
That's interesting.
So many people, not necessarily people with paralysis, people perhaps with hearing impairments, orthopedic problems, growth problems, and they will, well, we've heard garments owners say how much they favour somebody with a disability because they say they take their job so much more seriously. They are much more punctual than the able-bodied counterpart. They take less leave of absence. They, I suppose, value a job so much when they're given
So
the
when
chance.
you went first, less people spoke English, but
That's
now
true.
do you notice that more people
yes, it's
speak?
very true. I think more people do have good knowledge of English and love to share their English with you. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So this time, I think when you reach Bangladesh, the weather will be better.
It will
better, and then you come back, and of course you have done work within UK, and I'm sure that the new project you are doing in Sylhet, people will be supporting it.
Will be wonderful.
Because there is definitely a need in Bangladesh for the disabled and paralyzed and neglected people.
Yes, there certainly is. And I think because we're training physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, people who will do orthotics and prosthetics as a profession, that we now are able to equip those divisional centres across the country, and more people can benefit so that their disability is something they can manage
Do you
much
have
better.
links with UK doctors?
We do, because we use this telemedicine link.
Yeah.
Whenever our doctors or therapists have a problem and they want a second opinion, it says something called the Swinfen Charitable Trust.
Swinfen.
That started,
Lord Swinfen?
Exactly.
Oh, I used to know
Yes, Lord Swinfen, Lady Swinfen commenced this. And so through that, they have a list of consultants on various specialities that will come forward and guide our doctors. This is a beautiful way for doctors to be learning all the time from very much more.
Do you get
experienced
visits
people.
from doctors
we do,
from UK?
We do have visits, we do. And we have a lot of therapists who are students coming over to do their practical placements with us.
From UK?
Yes. Also from Canada, from Australia, from Germany, but always from the UK. Yes, so we've some very good
Excellent.
links. Have
And
been
lastly, what message would you give to our viewers?
Well, I think that I want to say that everybody has a part to play. We hope that it won't be that the viewers' own relatives and friends need this help, but sometimes they do. And if people feel that they could contribute, even if it was £10 a year, that a large number of Bangladeshis could come forward and donate. This would make such a tremendous difference for people who really struggle to have to get to Sabah and then try and, for example, the cost of a wheelchair, the cost of walking aids. There are so many things that are required. And if people in the UK, expatriate Bangladeshis, can come forward in that way, and anyone who, from Sylhet especially, who feels that they could support the building up of a purpose-designed building for the divisional centre, we would welcome that greatly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having
me. Thank you for traveling to Channel S. We do appreciate it. You are an inspiration. We are proud of you.
Well, it's very kind of you. Thank you.
Viewers, we have been talking to Valerie Taylor, OBE. She is known as Mother Teresa of Bangladesh. She has been working for decades in Bangladesh, leading a challengeable work in Bangladesh for the disabled and paralyzed. Stay with us. Next episode will bring another special guest. Thank you.